Welcome everyone to this first episode of the Defi Angle, where we talk about DeFi with builders and innovators. And today we're so pumped to have Marc Zeller with us. Hi, Marc.
Hello. Thanks for inviting me.
We're glad to have you here. Marc was actually the head of strategy at Aave up until recently, and is now the founder of the Aave-Chan initiative. Marc, can you tell us a little bit about the Aave-Chan initiatives before we get into the details about Aave and what it is?
Well, I still have to talk a bit about Aave to explain the Aave-Chan initiative because as the name hints, both are linked. Aave is a decentralized autonomous organization. It's a DAO. And as such, there's no one in the world, no single entity, no single person in the world that has like a secret magic button on their desk to modify the protocol. The only way the protocol can upgrade, the only way the protocol can be modified is through a process that we call Aave improvement proposals, which are actually on-chain votes that are enforced by smart contracts. And the way it works is that anybody with some Aave tokens, which are the native assets of the Aave protocol, has governance rights and can, if they have a threshold of token, they can publish AIPs to improve, modify, or change the protocol. And because not everybody has like dozens of millions that are required to reach those thresholds, because obviously modifying a protocol with millions of dollars in it should not be done like lightly. There's a full system and an ecosystem of delegates. So anybody with some Aave can decide to delegate their voting power or their proposition power to third parties, entities, or individuals that are willing to be active in the Aave governance, in the strategy and the vision of the Aave protocol. And the Aave-Chan initiative is a recent delegate platform that I founded in the past few weeks that intend to be an active governance participant, an active creator and publisher of AIPs, specialized in asset listing, risk management, and also treasury strategy.
All right. So my understanding is this Aave-Chan initiative is to fill out some gaps that were existing in the Aave governance and generally in DeFi governance that is a little bit active and less active and struggling during this bear market to find a level of decentralization that is satisfying. Could you tell us a little bit more about these gaps that you're trying to fill here?
There's well, we are blessed at Aave to be one of the most active governance out there, like of the DeFi protocol. I think like MakerDAO is probably the best in the world and the most mature one, but they have like a bit of a head start, being one of the first or the first DeFi protocol out there. But I would like confidently say that Aave is on the top three, easily on the most active governance. That being said, we witnessed with the bear market less activity on the market and also less activity on governance, with a tad more of voter apathy. And we got, for example, recently very good proposals that are non-contentious. Like everybody was cool with it, no opposition to it. Like for example, liquidity mining on Polygon V3 market for LSD tokens, liquid staking derivative, and those proposals were met with 99.9% yes votes, but did fail to reach quorum. And I think as governance mature, it's important to have strong delegates, active delegates that will show up to every vote and that will fully transparently and have auditable track records of voting and platforms to participate, to make sure that the process is still smooth and still ongoing, even if not every single token holder will check every proposal and vote on every proposal. At the end of the day, like democracy and republic works the same way. Like if as a citizen I needed to be asked on every single issue of my state, I will probably don't know much about most of them, and also don't have time because I have a work and I have a life and other stuff to do. So usually there's representative democracy in place that make sure that people, most of the time, usually not always, but most of the time, know what they are doing and try to do their best to represent their citizens.
All right, I understand. Very critical initiative here to allow proposals that are supported by the community to be voted upon. And when is the Aave-Chan initiative be live? Am I able to delegate as of today?
You are able to get as of today. It's Aave-Chan.it, the ENS, and you can just go to app.aave.com/governance, and you have a panel on the left side of the screen, and you can, in one click, delegate your voting or your proposition power to Aave-Chan.it, and it's already live. We have, as of today, we launched 3 weeks ago, a bit more than 36,000 Aave. And it's much more than what I own personally. That's because it represents a lot of votes. But in order to be actually active, well, we vote right now on every proposal, obviously. But in order to publish AIP, the threshold and the quorum is 80,000 votes. So we are almost halfway there, like 4,000 AV short to be halfway there. And we have high hope that during the months of January or by year end, we reach that threshold and we will be able early 2023 to publish our first AIPs to improve the protocol.
Oh, understood. We'll provide the links below in the video for anyone that wants to delegate with Aave-Chan. About the threshold of 80,000 Aave, which is quite high. What do you think about putting gated abilities to submit proposals? Because this is something that obviously prevents anyone from proposing on a governance proposal. What do you think about that?
So actually, the Aave governance is a 3-stage governance process. And each stage is a bit more gated than the other. And basically, the idea behind that is that we got, I think at this point, 140 AIPs in the past 2 years. So that's on average more than one a week. So every single week, there's been a proposal on the governance contract where candidates to modify the protocol. And it's crazy critical, like a bad AIP can kill Aave. So it's really something that you don't want to create overnight and just have it pass because nobody cares, or the other way around. So it's important to have a filter there. So the 3-stage governance process is, the first stage is simply writing a thread on the governance forum. So if you go to governance.aave.com, there's a discourse forum. You can join. Obviously, there's a few rules. Everybody can do it, but there's a few rules to follow in order to keep things tidy and understandable. There's a standard for AIP to follow. There's standardization of this kind of things. But anybody can do it, and even if you have 0 Aave, you can create what we call an ARC, Aave request for comment. And if there's consensus on the forum, you can. The next stage is creating a snapshot vote, which is a non-enforcing vote that anybody can create if they have 50 Aave. At current price, we are in the bear market. 50 Aave, it's probably $2,500 or $3,000, something like that, which is an amount of money, but still accessible. So that's quite an amount, but still accessible to a lot of holders. And the idea is to have like a second stage. And if that passes the majority vote, the third stage is the unchecked vote with a huge quorum. And the whole idea is that we probably have like, I don't know, 500, 600 of governance thread, maybe 200 snapshot vote, and 140 AIP, on-chain AIP. So by putting this filter, we can make sure that only the best quality proposal reach the on-chain vote, which are the enforcing votes. And so far, it works.
Definitely. There is this gradation allowing people to, still submit their ideas, but that filter is there and allows to have the best proposals go through. Totally understood. And now back to you. As we said, you now co-founded the Aave-Chan initiative, but you were previously leading Aave's strategy. Um, in terms of strategy, we're going through a very rough bear market. Daily volumes for borrowing went for major platform went down of almost 75% in a year.
Mhm.
How did that impact your role as a strategist?
It's actually quite interesting because when numbers are down across the board, good and bad are down. And usually it's when things go up that the bad stuff stay down and the good stuff wake up. And basically, we were lucky in the sense that Aave protocol model and revenue fee model were sound enough that we acquired quite, and when I say we, it's the DAO. The DAO acquired a large enough treasury to make sure that during the bad weather, everything is fine. There's been a lot of spending in 2022 to fund BGD Labs initiative, which is core developers, to fund the Aave companies and the development on V3, to fund risk models and things like that. There's been big spendings, dozens of millions of dollars spendings, and they're still at this point probably near the bottom of the bear market where everything is down. $30 million of stablecoin in the treasury and a few millions of other assets in the treasury as well. So the financial part of the Aave protocol is quite strong, and even if the bear market lasts for another year or even 2 years, there's not going to be issue to make sure service provider keep contributing and keep building. So that's the good part of it. But it's also important to focus on the Aave protocol side of things, or how to generate revenue for the protocol, because as the interest rate across the board went down, most of the revenue of the protocol is what we call the reserve factor. So it's part of the interest paid by the borrowers on Aave to the liquidity provider. And it was a double effect, the bear market. So the rate went down. So the fee on those rates went down, and also the volume went down. So there's been less stuff to take a fee on. And on the stuff you take a fee on, it's much more than before. So revenue went from, I don't know the exact number, but we are on the blockchain, so everything can be verified. And there's several areas of new revenue that will come in Aave. The first thing is that on V3, there's going to be days where V3 is a fee on liquidation. So when the market will be down and there's some liquidation on the protocol, it's really important to have like liquidator that protect the protocol. And the protocol will also take a fee on that and is doing this already on V3. The second thing is the launch of the new product, the stablecoin, the Go stablecoin, because there's no liquidity provider on Go, because Go is minted by the protocol. 100% of the interest paid by the minter of Go goes to the protocol. So it's pretty powerful, because a reserve factor, let's say it costs the same price to borrow USDC and to mint Go, like 1% on Aave. If you have a 10% reserve factor and obviously 100% of the revenue of Go, having 10 USDC borrowed is the same revenue that having one Go minted. So obviously it will not be that much of a difference on every situation, but I think people realize how powerful is that. And also a third pathway to generate more revenue is to increase linked to economic activity borrowing volume to V3 efficiency mode. So we work a lot, and we were the pioneer in DeFi on that, on liquid staking derivative as collateral, because we think it's the best form of collateral. If you believe in it, I'm a huge ETH believer. I'm probably some people call me a ETH maximalist. It's not completely true, because I love other stuff as well, but it's not far from the truth. And for example, I don't have much ETH. I own right now, I can tell you, I always have less than one. So I own right now 0.7 ETH, and that's to pay gas. Everything else, it's stake on my solo staking, or in ST or ETH liquid staking derivative, because it doesn't make sense to have money that doesn't work. Like at the end of the day, if you believe in it, stake it. If you believe in Matic, stake it and participate in the security of the protocol because it's proof of stake. It's made for that. Obviously, you should have enough ETH to pay transaction fee. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to use your wallet, but you don't need much more than that. So that's really something that is interesting as a collateral, because if all things are equal and you believe in the long term of ETH or Polygon or SAVAX or this kind of stuff, the value of your collateral will go up through the staking revenue, and maybe will go up higher than the value of your debt. Obviously, it's not a financial advice, and things can go wrong if you take directional position on the market. But it's a bet that many are ready to take. And liquid staking derivative, we were pioneer in the ecosystem to do that with SAVAX. We were the first to have it as collateral on the Avalanche network. Then we added ST-ETH. It was a huge success, more than $1 billion of borrowing volume. And we did Matic X and ST-Matic on Polygon. And we want to develop more yield-bearing, safe asset as collateral. For example, I will give another example. It's LP tokens. If you provide liquidity on Curve in stablecoin, you get 3 CRV, which is a basket of USD-based stablecoins. That's probably one of the best kind of collateral you can have. If you want to have a safe collateral that generates a yield that is paid in CRV asset,
Agreed.
you can use that as collateral and create a position. And if you use 3 CRV to Mingo, you probably will have, in most market situations, obviously not all of them, and there will always be a risk, but you will probably end up with a collateral that earn more than what the cost you, what the debt costs you. And if you use the debt to provide liquidity somewhere else, at the end of the day, you're not taking a huge speculative bet. You're not betting on asset that can do 10x overnight or lose 90% of their value overnight. But you have you provide liquidity on the market, which is something that is important in actual economic activity. You earn your yield through actual economic activity, people using stablecoin to swap and to use DeFi. And you have a good product. And the Aave-Chan initiative will work more and more to have this new kind of product, to have better revenue for the Aave protocol, more but still sustainable and no dynamics.
That's great. I understand that, you holding a position formally as head of strategy at Aave and having this broad vision of what could be helpful both for DeFi users and the protocol at large can help you, with Aave-Chan initiative now to push these proposals that are beneficial for the whole entire system. And in respect of these productive assets as collateral, do you have any announcement, ETA to make in respect of new collaterals coming up onto Aave?
Well, I can say for sure, because it's part of my delegate platform, that I'm a huge supporter of LP tokens. That makes sense, and they are not speculative as collateral on Aave, especially on Curve and Balancer. I think, for example, when you WST ETH and ETH LP is a very interesting product to use as a collateral, because you get yield, a good source of yield through actual economical activity. And if you use that to borrow some ETH, your debt is ETH, and your collateral is very closely linked to ETH. So if you have supply and borrow cap to make sure things go safe and there's not too much damage in case, for example, of a depeg of ST, that can happen. And because V3 has caps on what can be supplied and borrowed on specific class of asset, and efficiency mode and isolation mode to make sure that if there's bad thing happening on an asset, the impact of that doesn't affect, for example, liquidity provider of other asset, because I don't think WBTC holders should lose money if ST go down. That won't please our Bitcoin maximalist friend, isn't it? And so these kind of assets are really a point of focus of the Aave-Chan initiative, because we need to increase real economical activity yield and put it forward in DeFi, because at the end of the day, it's sustainable growth. And I think like the last market teach us that fancy yields, but sometimes it's not that sustainable. It's time to focus on yield that comes from economical activity.
Very interesting, and we will get on that on the issue of real yield and broadening the DeFi reach to traditional finance. But before that, I wanted to return on what you mentioned about risks and the type of collateral that will be accepted. Wanted to talk more largely on the risk framework of Aave, and especially in the light of the Aave attack that happened recently. Can you please walk us through what you will do with Aave-Chan in respect of these risks?
First thing I want to say is that there's two independent risk provider in the Aave DAO, which are Gauntlet and Chaos Lab. It's really important for me for DAOs to have independent third parties to manage risk, because at the end of the day, you have professionals that don't really have vested interest and conflict of interest or this kind of stuff that are truly independent, that do their job to protect the protocol. And that's the best thing you can do. And I think it's really a good thing for the Aave protocol to have several, and I insist on several, because you have a diversity and you can have like different opinion, and it's good to have a debate. Usually they agree because they are good professional, but if there's a debate, it's a good thing for the protocol as well. And basically what happened with CRV is that it was not envisioned in the Gauntlet model that an attacker was ready to lose a lot of money to make sure that the Aave protocol, lose a little bit of money. Because usually the assumption is that people will attack the protocol to make money. And it was like another look in the model that is now completely taken into consideration. That cannot happen again, this kind of stuff. And also it was an opportunity seized that V3 is not released yet, but that will be fixed in the next few weeks on Ethereum mainnet, because this kind of event cannot happen on Aave V3 because we have borrow and supply caps. So you cannot take virtually infinitely size position on Aave V3, because if you try to do the same thing that happened, you will just reach the cap and be completely locked in your position, and you will not be able to have the impact you had. It's quite interesting that this event happened, because at the end of the day, the size of this position was, I think, like at the peak $70 million or $65 million, which is huge for the liquidity of the CRV token, especially in the bear market. And we got on the regular liquidation model more than 95% of the position side that has been clear, with less than 5% of the position side, but even less than that has excess debt. And now we have a proposal that is not live yet, but probably will be live on Monday, to repay that excess debt with the DAO treasury. So at the end of the day, the Aave protocol took a hit of $1.3 million with the current market price, probably 1.4, 1.5, something like that. So very close to that figure. And as I said before in this podcast, we got more than $30 million of stablecoins. So there's more than enough money to make sure that no Aave user lost a dime in this event.
Absolutely. Okay. That's very clear. And you were mentioning the gold stablecoin. We have seen recently a lot of announcements of different platforms launching their stablecoin. And actually, Angle Protocol, where I work, also has a stablecoin. What is the rationale, strategically speaking, especially for you, who was in charge of strategy for launching that stablecoin?
Well, as I said earlier in the podcast, when you are a liquidity protocol such as Aave, you are in the best spot possible to launch a stablecoin, because at the end of the day, there's very little difference in terms of architecture between a liquidity protocol and a decentralized stablecoin minter that do over collateralization. It's the same. It's basically the same job. It's different product. Obviously, some stuff change, but it's basically the same job. And when you have reach a critical mass of liquidity, which is the case on Aave, you are in a comfortable position to mint a stablecoin. In terms of protocol, the first thing is revenue standpoint. As I said earlier, obviously it was a best case scenario, but one Go minted is the equivalent of several USDC borrowed. So it's much more efficient for the protocol, for the simple reason that the liquidity provider is the protocol. So all interest paid goes to the liquidity provider, which is the protocol, which is the Aave-DAO. And more in the board vision and in the strategies part of things, there's several products at the Aave company. So everybody knows the Web3 Studio Aave companies that launched the Aave protocol, but we also, as the Aave companies, launch the Lens protocol, which is a social media, quote unquote, more data, profile ownership protocol and content monetization protocol. Because at the end of the day, everything you publish on the Lens protocol on the application layer can be an NFT with a collect module, so you can directly support content creators. And when you have your own stablecoin, you have an asset that is completely seamless and can be completely integrated within the experience of the Lens protocol. So it completely makes sense to have a native asset of the Lens protocol in terms of medium of exchange, and a stablecoin is well made to do that. And the last thing is also in terms of diversity. It's really important to have several decentralized stablecoins. So at Aave, we absolutely welcome, and obviously they were here before us, but we are big fans of that. We welcome as well the Curve stablecoin, the CRV USD. We are big fans and also friends with Frax. With their slightly algorithmic stablecoin, but mostly over collateralized at this point, to be honest. I think it's 95% or something like that. And we think there's going to be more and more stablecoins in the future. And the more decentralized stablecoins we have, the less reliant we are on centralized stablecoins such as USDC or USDT. We have nothing against Circle, we have nothing against Tether. They have a use case, they have an audience. But I think in DeFi, I would love to have diversity in the stablecoin offering and not the market share of those stablecoins to be evenly spread across different solutions and not having a single asset that takes too much market share, because at the end of the day, we are in the business of decentralization.
Absolutely. That's very clear and agreed. And it's very interesting because this is the second time that you mention now Aave companies, and we have talked about the array of future directions that Aave is going to take as a lending and borrowing platforms, but there are other activities there. And now with Lens, can you please tell me about the long-term vision for Aave companies as a whole and what will be its positioning?
Well, the other companies, it's a Web3 studio at this point. We are the creators, and from now on, when I say we, is the Aave company. Even if I'm only part of the Aave company for a few more hours before becoming a full-time DAO delegates. But I will say we one last time in this podcast. That's a good thing as well. And so there's several verticals. The first one is the Aave protocol that was created and invented by the Aave companies, and is more and more every day decentralized in terms of service provider. So when I joined the Aave companies in 2019, the thing was called Atlant, and I joined for the pivot to Aave. And I will say that more than 95% or even 99% of the work on the Aave protocol was done by the Aave companies. It's normal. When you launch a new product, you have a small team, and if you want to establish a vision, create a community, you need to have like a small team that do stuff. But if you have this DeFi vision, if you have decentralization in mind from day one, you know that as the protocol gets mature, you give more and more power to the community. It was called, I think, in 2020 or 21, I don't remember. There were a big article on that called Exit to Community. And I think it's a vision in the sense that when the protocol generates its own revenue and is able to, as a protocol, as a DAO, to pay service provider, it's important to have independent third party step in, and the company that will still be focused on Aave very much, but give more and more space to independent third party. And that's what is happening. Now, the Aave companies is one of many service provider of the Aave protocol. And the same thing is happening right now on Lens. So Lens was created and built by the Aave companies, and now more and more independent third party are creating their application on top of the Lens protocol. For example, Lenster, which has a user experience very close to what you can find on Twitter, or Orbs, which is a mobile first, or Faber, for example. And it's this decentralization process is happening. But there's also other parts of Aave that are quite interesting. The idea that the Aave companies is trying to develop, it takes a lot of time because there's a lot of paperwork when you go into that area, but a fintech, in the sense that there's an electronic money institution application that has been done in the UK. The Aave company is based in the UK. And the idea is that in the midterm or in the long term, there's going to be financial services that can be provided to a user that will use the decentralized part of Aave as a backend. So you will have like CDFI services offered to user. So for example, the ability to swap fiduciary currency to a stablecoin, and the other way around. Obviously, to do that, you will have to do centralized part, because if you touch fiduciary currency, you will have to do KYC or this kind of stuff. But DeFi will be the center of gravity and the backend. And it's just a range of services, a layer of services on top of the centralized protocol. And I think that's the vision. Like Stani said many times in interviews, something that I believe is a good vision is that at the end of the day, we will have CeFi is the front end and DeFi is the back end. And I think that's fit for many people. Obviously, there's always going to be people like us that want to do full DeFi experience, that want to own a ledger, have their own seed phrase, do their own transaction on the blockchain. But I think in the future, more and more people will use DeFi without even knowing what blockchain means. And it's fine. It's the technology being more mature, and good technology, mature technology is invisible. That's maybe why the logo of Aave is a ghost.
Got it. Very interesting. Because I understand now that you are building this bridge for users that are less into DeFi or less knowledgeable in using all these processes that we use now to be fully versed in DeFi. But my question is, are you doing this as a name to bring much more retailers or institutions, or do you have a strategy that is tailored to both type of users?
Crypto is about cycles, and I think we all witnessed that at some point. And I think the first cycle was the nerd cycle, like people that believe in the new technology, in the blockchain, with a huge ethos of decentralization. Obviously, in every cycle, there's speculation, like Ponzi or stuff. Like in the first cycle, you got like the altcoins of many forks of Bitcoins and things like that in 2014 and so on. But it was like nerd cycle. The cycle after that was the ICO cycle, and was mainly about speculation. People were selling tokens using a PDF, basically a white paper PDF, and there were like nothing actually happening. And obviously 99% has gone to zero, but the 1% remained and became market leaders. And among this 1% was Ep.1, for example, which was a 2017 ICO. And I think Aave is delivered like quite a bit of the Ep.1 vision. The cycle we just finished right now was the application cycle. For the first time since the creation of the technology, we actually had people use smart contracts, use fully fledged application, fully fledged decentralized apps, and interacting with the blockchain. That was actually the first time at scale. Obviously, on every cycle, you could, if you were a nerd, like do stuff, but for the first time, it happened at scale. And I think the next cycle is the user cycle, in the sense that we have the product market fit for those applications. Like nobody serious is saying DeFi is dead. Nobody serious is saying Bitcoin or Ethereum is dead. We know there's a market for that. There's a need for that, and it will remain. But the focus of the next cycle will make all this accessible. So that's why I'm very interested in stablecoin development, in the sense that if you want user, you have to cater to other audience than just speculators. And stablecoin at its core are non-speculative assets that can be used to purchase goods and services on the blockchain. So that can be interesting. I'm very interested in account abstraction wallets, because with smart contract wallets, you can have a wallet experience that completely hide the blockchain, and you don't have to write down 24 weird words. And if you lose those 24 words, you lose all your money. That can be quite scary. You have gas relayers and dispatcher, so you don't have to sign every transaction. You can sign one time with your wallet when you log in into an app, and then all your experience is quote unquote gas free, because somebody else is paying for you, or you pay the gas tank and then you don't have to think about it after that. Layer 2 as well. And all of that is getting mature in 2023. So I'm very excited for next year, because know that the noise is down, know that the tourists are gone and the scammers are in jail. And I think we got one big one happen this week. I think it's time for the builders to take back the center of the stage and deliver the tools and the experience that will bring the actual audience DeFi and the crypto ecosystem deserve.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one last question in respect of, you were talking about the cycles. When will the cycle of institutions come? Because you have this saying in DeFi, people will always say institutions are coming. Is Aave working actively to create that, integration of institutions in the world of DeFi? And how do you see this playing out?
I think there's more and more institutions that join this cycle, to be honest. We even had sovereign states recognize Bitcoin and buying Bitcoin, like officially, with like the state balance. I will not comment if that's a good or a bad thing, but it's an impressive thing. It happened, this cycle. It was completely not even thinkable 5 years ago or 6 years ago. And now it happened. And you have like one of the largest companies in the world that integrated Bitcoin into their balance sheet. It was like quite interesting, this cycle for this. So it already started. But people have to realize that it's the law of physics. The larger you are, the more inertia you have. So the slower things get into motion. That's just physics, like basic ones. I think it's already started. It just takes time to be put in place. But we have strong hints and indication that the movement starts, and this kind of inertia works both ways. So when this kind of stuff starts to be in motion, it's harder and harder to stop.
Of course. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Marc. And now I have a few personal questions to ask, because you're a crypto OG, and I would like to know what you do daily. What is your crypto routine, and most importantly, what do you do when you're on Twitter or Lens for facts?
I trust, I guess. I try to say funny stuff, and sometimes I argue with people on the internet, which is the internet national sport. And so the first thing I do in the morning is to check Twitter to see if something collapsed. That's what we do in the bear market. In the bull market is the opposite, because one thing that people have to realize is that crypto never stops. So sometimes you have to go to sleep, but there's always stuff happening when you're out. And first thing in the morning, I check what happened, like the big news. I don't put too much time in it. After that, I check the governance for Aave. to see if there's new proposal and if I need to respond on it. And then I start working on other stuff as well. But yeah, the first thing I do in the morning is check if there's a new big drama, which happen every other day, to be honest, and check the Aave governance. So the most important stuff, I guess.
And what accounts you always follow and you would recommend everyone here to follow?
The Angle protocol accounts, obviously.
Of course, Angle protocol. Any other?
It depends of what you seek in terms of information. There's a few accounts that are. I try to, for example, I try to mix information like a quality post with entertainment. I think at the end of the day, it's always interesting to have like a bit of seriousness and a bit of fun. And the balance is good. But I will recommend for someone that wants to upskill fast in the ecosystem, not a Twitter account, but a YouTube channel, which is Finematics. I can guarantee you that if you take the time, there's not too much video. Those videos are not too long. If it's a bit complex for you at the beginning, you can slow things down or rewatch parts. But I can guarantee that if you watch every video on the blockchain of Finematics, you will know more than 99% of people out there. And you will be part of the 1%. I'm completely sure of that. And you will cover the most important stuff. And it's straight to the point. It's animation. It's easy to understand. And after that, the real challenge is to go from the 1% to the 0.1%. And that's, you will have a great start after watching the Finematic video. So it's definitely a recommendation for me.
Thank you very much. And I commend that amazing channel. And what are you excited to see happen in the space in the coming months?
As I said a bit earlier, I think it's time for account abstraction to shine. At the end of the day, having our own seed phrase, our own wallet, our own ledger, it's great. And I will still have that as a person, but it's unfit for my mother. It's unfit for my father. It's unfit for most people out there. And smart contract wallets just make sense. We got one of the pioneer in this area with Argent as early as 2020, and there's more and more wallets working on this, and I think that's the future. I'm very hype about layer 2s. Starknet is taking steam step by step. Polygon is turning itself from a commit chain to an actual layer 2 with zk EVM. Arbitrum and Optimism, which are optimistic rollups, are also gaining traction, and we are very close to having very strong scalability on Ethereum, so the ability to use it for transaction fees that are affordable. Because at the end of the day, like the whole point of DeFi is that you will get exactly the same treatment if you have $1 billion or $10, no matter who you are in the world and no matter what you do or where you come from. But the truth is, when you have to pay $15 to use Ethereum, well, if you have $10, that's not worth it to use DeFi. So if we don't have scalability solution that make sure that the transaction fees stay in acceptable range, we are not as inclusive as I want us to be. So very interested for those two parts that will do strong progress in 2023.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Two last questions. If you were not working in DeFi or now co-founding Aave-Chan, what would you do? And can you recommend guests for the next episodes?
I have absolutely no idea what would I do. I'm addicted to crypto. Like, to be honest, I don't know. Like, if the blockchain goes to zero, I will be completely lost, to be honest. I don't know. What would you do, Mariam?
I guess we're all addicted to DeFi.
Yeah.
And projects you would love to see here?
I'd like to recommend a fellow French. I don't know if he did it already, but I would recommend Abdelhamid, which is a strong member of the development community in France that work on Ethereum core stuff such as EIP 1449, and is the creator of EVM network on top of Starknet called Kakaoto. And I think he has many interesting things to share, especially in what I said about what excites me for next year, scalability and rollups. So definitely a recommendation for me.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Marc, for being here on the podcast and telling us about the future of Aave and now Aave-Chan initiative. We will share all the links for everyone who wants to delegate with Aave-Chan right below. Thank you, Marc, and speak soon.
Thank you very much for your time.